It's the Eddy Cornes podcast, and we've got a really fun episode for you today. Kane Cornes is back, and we're drafting. Bit of a random one. We're drafting the 20 players we are keeping the closest eye on during the 2026 AFL season. It's a really fun episode, and if you enjoy it, which I'm sure you will, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We just passed 400 subscribers on YouTube. We're trying to get to 500 before the end of February. So if you never, ever, ever want to miss out on an upload of this podcast, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. And after this podcast, you should go check out an episode I did 2 days ago with the Jumper Punch podcast. We talked about Zach Butters for the first 20 minutes, and then we just kind of dove into every topic you can imagine when it comes to the AFL. So we're getting closer and closer to the season. If you're desperate for some more footy content, head over to the Jumper Punch podcast after you listen to this episode and tune in to that. Really fun hour or so conversation I had with the boys over at the Jumper Punch podcast. All right, let's jump into this one. Kane Cornes is here. Enjoy. Didn't take very long for him to come back on the show. I'm very excited about it. Dad, how are you?
I'm good. About 30 odd days till footy season. Next week's State of Origin, so it feels very footy centric now. A lot of footy storylines about the place. It's going to come around quickly. And since I came on last time, I've all sorts of requests to go on rival podcasts. And I said, nah. I said, sorry, the Will Schofield podcast can't do it. Brian Taylor can't do it. Others, I said, there's only one podcast I do. So here we are from the kitchen table today.
It's the fastest growing podcast in Australia for a reason. And we've got a lot to talk about today. I want to start with Origin, though. You're going to be on the coverage. Do you think people are excited for this game? Do you get a feeling that people want to watch it?
Yeah, I do. I'm worried how weak the WA side is. Some of the names that are going to be out there are lucky and sort of been picked by default because they're the last man standing with some injuries. But yeah, with all due respect, the Victorian side looks far superior. I think if they're having a genuine crack and everyone's trying their hardest to win, Victoria should be winning by 10 goals plus. But look, it's exciting. It's footy. The Perth government and everyone over there is right behind it. They love their sport. So there'll be 50,000 there and there'll be a big build up to it. Channel 7 are excited about it, heading over on Tuesday, I think it is, and we've got a show on the Thursday night called the State of Origin Spectacular on 7, so that'll be good. We catch up with some people over there. So footy's back, and how serious the players take it, I guess, will dictate whether or not the concept comes back.
We're going to discuss a few of the players that are going to be a part of this game today. It's been a while since me and you have done a draft on this podcast, and I actually might let you explain what we're doing. It's sort of a player storyline type draft. Tell us the plan today.
Well, I just thought, there's a lot of individual storylines in terms of the season. And I think with the trade period and players being pretty adamant that they want out, some got out and some didn't. I think with that comes an extra level of pressure. And I think there's some fair amount of pressure on some of those players when you think of sort of Zach Merritt, who's going to feature, I would think, at the pointy end of the draft. Certainly, if I have my way, he will. We're going to be watching him. How's he react? Is he happy to be there? I think he's going to be heavily scrutinised. A number of other players that you can think of, which I won't spoil the concept of the draft. But essentially, it's the most watched players for this year, and there's a pressure factor in this, and there's various reasons as to why. So I don't know who you're going to pick. You don't know who I'm going to pick, but we'll have a crack, and then we'll compare at the end of it and who's got the strongest draft.
Let's jump straight into it. I'll let you have your pick.
How many
you
picks?
Want the first?
How many?
We'll do 10. 5 each.
Okay.
All right. Do you want the first or second pick?
I'll go the second pick. You can have it.
All right.
I think we should do 20 though.
20, you reckon?
Yeah.
All right. Okay,
So
let's do it.
You haven't prepared for 20.
No.
You need 10 names, and you haven't even got 10. I've already won.
I've got 10. I've definitely got 10.
Okay.
We can figure out 20. That's fine. This is an easy pick, though. If I have number one, it's Zach Butters. He's one of the best players in the competition. He's going to be a restricted free agent after this season. And Port Adelaide is in a really interesting spot where I think both of us agree they're not going to be very good this year. So it puts Butters in an awkward situation. No one has a read on if he's leaving, if he's staying, and if he does leave, where he's going in Victoria. I think a lot of fans of Victorian clubs are going to be closely watching Port Adelaide games this year, which sounds a bit strange considering they're not going to be very good. But I think most people in the AFL are going to be keeping a very close watch on Zach Butters every move this year, every press conference, and everything he says because they're desperate to bring him over to their club.
It's a good pick. Vice captain of Port Adelaide. Geelong and Western Bulldogs apparently the front runners for that. So how it affects his form and who can get him on what's going to be, it'll be the richest contract ever. It'll be the highest paid player ever. So Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller is that now. It was a shorter term deal for a couple of years. Butters is, I would think, going to go long term for north of 1.5 per season. So it'll be the biggest contract in AFL history, you would think, and it's a good pick.
If you were Zach Butters, where would you go? Of the Victorian clubs, if you were leaving, where would you go?
Probably Hawthorn.
Yeah,
I reckon if success is important too, I think they're as well set as anyone, perfectly suited for what they need through that midfield, which is probably their only weakness, well coached and are going to be set up for a long period of time. Big club, that would be my pick, but Geelong, Western Bulldogs are in the mix. Everyone will be in the mix. Collingwood, they're going to have a crack whether they can pull it off or not. And how Port Adelaide handle it as well. They'll match the deal. So then how strongly do they, try and bargain for the best deal as they can? It'll be a really interesting watch this year. So he's going to be watched. So good pick. But Zach Merritt's the obvious choice here at pick 2. Like the captain, the star, the future Hall of Famer, is no longer captain of Essendon, and he missed a team photo the other day through illness. That's a story. That's a story. So that just tells you how many articles, how many newspaper pieces, how many TV clips, how many social media offerings are going to be related to Zach Merritt. We'll be watching his every move. He's got one more year after this. Does he go again? Does he demand out again? He's already sacked his manager. He's got another manager. So can the new manager get him out? Probably going to be easier, but I'm not sure the offers are going to be as significant as what they were last time. So Zach Merritt, I think he's hurt his reputation by the way he's handled himself and wanted to trade out of the club that he was fully prepared to commit long-term to. I think it was the easy option for him. It didn't work, so we'll see how he performs this year.
All right, my pick number 3. This is already getting tough, but I'm going to go with Jamara Ugle-Hagan. I just think this guy has been involved in about every single controversy you can possibly imagine. And I want to see 10 consistent games from Ugle-Hagan before I buy he can do anything to impact Gold Coast winning this year. I want to see him to start the season really strong. And I'm hearing good things from Gold Coast, but who knows? So I've got no idea what's going to happen with him this year. I've got no read on the situation, and I'd like to see 10 games from him where he's playing decent footy for me to buy. He's going to be important for Gold Coast as the season gets further and further along.
Good pick at 3. I spoke to a couple of Gold Coast players, well, their leaders really, Tuke Miller and their last 2 captains, Noah Anderson. And I said, look, I'm sick of seeing Jamara on social media. Like, can we just put together 6, 10, a season of good footy together before we start pumping him up like they have been doing? I get it. They got to sell memberships and interest and all of that. But, I'm not – he hasn't won me over, and it's going to take a fair amount of good football for him to win me over. But it was a risk that they were the only club prepared to take. If it was just talent, every club would have wanted to have a crack at him. So, some issues there, but so far so good. Let's be honest. He hasn't put a foot wrong. At 3, it's a good pick. At 4, I'm going to go Charlie Curnow, the new Sydney recruit. And Well, the saviour for the Swans, really. They needed a key position forward. Logan McDonald, Joel Amartey, McLean, a couple of ruckmen not getting it done. They gave up a huge price and sent some much-loved players, in particular Will Hayward, who was, almost their best team man for the last 5 years, Will Hayward to Carlton, and draft picks. Paid a big price to get him. And it was the right move, mind you. Like, when a key forward in their prime comes up, you do everything that you can to get him. Sydney have a history of being successful with trades like this for key forwards. Barry Hall, Tony Lockett, Buddy Franklin. They love a big marquee forward. They've got one. So let's see if he can really recapture the form that made him a top 10 player in the league before last year was pretty disappointing.
I'm big on Sydney this year, and a huge part of that is because when they got healthy, I think they went 7-3 or 7-2 at the end of last year. How much you're reading into that final part of Sydney's season in 2025, and do you think they're going to be right at the top of the ladder when the season ends?
Yeah, I like them. I think they're a very stable club off the field, which is important. New facility. Their top 5 players are the best, or certainly top 3. So when you look at Warner, Goulden, Heaney, Curnow and Blakey, there's not many clubs that have a better 5 than that. Dean Cox is a second-year coach now. He seems a bit more settled, a bit more relaxed. I think he's made of the right stuff. Simon Goodwin goes there. Does he help with some experience, premiership-winning coach? Time will tell. But, if they stay healthy, their midfield's elite. Heaney is a star. And Curnow's capable of kicking 65, 70 goals. So no real excuses for Sydney this year. Who are you picking at 5?
I'm going another big-name recruit, TDK. This could go either way. He could be one of the most overpaid players we've ever seen if he plays like he did with Carlton in 2025, or this could be a genius move that no one really expected to pay off the way it could. So I think TDK is going to be a player that everyone watches very closely this year. What are you expecting from him? Because I would say last season was pretty disappointing.
Take the money, which is good, but it expects people to expect you to play well. That's what I'm expecting a dominant player in the ruck, around the ground, which he can be. He's aggressive. His centre bounce work is really nice, and the rules have been changed to suit his style a bit more. Can go forward and mark it, although I'd like to see him do that a little bit more. But yeah, I think he needs to be a top 2 or 3 ruckman in the game to justify the investment. And it won't be just him. It'll be, if St Kilda are winning, they'll be pretty quiet about it, and everything will be pretty positive. If they struggle, then the pressure will become heavy on him and also the club for how aggressive they were in the trade period. At 6, I'm going Lachie Neale. I don't know if you've read it in the newspapers or seen it online, but there's been an issue with Lachie Neale and his partner, Jules, Eddy. Yep. I just pick up the paper every day and there's a new story on it. So I'm sure you haven't missed that. But, I think Lachie Neale is a big watch at 6 for me. Is it his last year at Brisbane? Does he head home at the end of the year? How's the off-field stuff going to affect his on-field form? All reports he's flying during the pre-season, and I see he's sort of back on Instagram and he's posting. He looks fit, so at his best, he's a top 5 midfielder in the game. Is he past it? Is he over the hill? Is he past his prime? Is he stressed? Is he anxious? And is he going to go home? There's lots of unanswered questions around Lachie Neale. That's why he's a very much going to be a watch player this year.
Agree. I would have picked him if he was still available, but instead I'm going to go off the board a little bit here. I'm actually going to pick Patrick Cripps. Now, it's very random. It is random. You probably could have waited a little bit longer. But I saw a video from Triple M, and it was Patrick Cripps kind of making fun of the video that came out from Carlton. And yes. Patrick Cripps is a huge part of that training video. He was kicking it out in the fall, and they were kind of making fun of that. If Carlton's season goes terribly, I think we look back on that season and we kind of question the leadership a little bit of Patrick Cripps. Because from that video, I get the sense that they're just kind of playing it off, having fun. But in reality, Carlton should not be accepting the level that was displayed in that video at training. So I'm going to be watching Patrick Cripps very closely because he didn't have a great year last year. The pressure's off him a little bit this season. I want to see him have a big year, and I want to see him be a huge part of Carlton's renaissance. And they're going to need to have a strong season for Michael Voss to keep his job. And I don't know. I didn't love what I saw from Patrick Cripps in that video.
Yeah, I was listening in the car live, and I thought, yeah, it's quite a humorous way to tackle what was that Carlton vision that caused a stir on social media. He said, look, if you look closely, I was actually the one that kicked the ball out in the full on my left and had a laugh about it. But 230 games, just the 4 finals for Patrick Cripps, so hasn't been able to have success at the business end. Look, I don't think that's his fault. I think he's pretty much carried this club on his back for the best part of 6, 7, 8 years. Dual Brownlow medalist, couldn't have done anything more individually, but hasn't had the team success that he would have craved. So at nearly 30 or past 30, how old is he? He's 30 and a half, so he'll turn 31 this year. And with the way that he's played and as brutal as it's been, he's not going to have many seasons left. So can he do what Dane Zorko has done and have some success at the back end of his career, or Lockie Neal? Remains to be seen. But a lot of pressure on the Blues this year. He wasn't in my top 10, but I respect the pick. At number 8, I'm going to go with Jai Simpkin from North Melbourne.
Wow. Okay.
Was a captain of a club that has been an embarrassing basket case, let's be honest, and was forced to play through, I guess, his own limitations in his game, but also some young players coming through the midfield, a different role that wasn't necessarily suited to his best attributes. He didn't like it, demanded a trade essentially at the end of the year, and I think it was a fair reality check for him that the offer was about a second-round pick. That was about as good as Jai Simpkin in the prime of his career was going to get. And there was no one banging the door down to sign him, particularly with the contract that he's on, which is overs for what he should be getting. And now he's not captain anymore. So is he even in their best 22? How's he going to handle it? Can he bounce back? Can he use it as motivation? I don't know. But I think when a captain wants out and there's not many suitors, and now he's not the captain anymore of a struggling club, then I think there's going to be a few people watching the way he goes about it this year.
Interesting. All right. My next pick, this guy just has to be in this draft every year. Doesn't matter. Bailey Smith. There's always going to be some sort of controversy. He'll post something on social media. The pressure will be on because of that. And he's at a big club like Geelong. So this is a pretty stock standard pick. I just think Bailey Smith has to be on this list every year.
Yep. I don't think anything more needs to be said about that. At 10, I'm going to go Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. Can he replicate what he did last year, or can he go to another level? Now, I've got my concerns on that. I think there's going to be all sorts of tactics against him, tactics that he hasn't yet seen when it comes to tags, physicality off the ball, teams trying to get under his skin, double tags like Nick Dacos cops. Might be someone for half a quarter. It might be another fresh player for the other half. Where does he play? Is it midfield? Is it halfback? Expectation is the highest paid player in the game. And we're expecting big things. Can he handle that expectation? Is going to be a really interesting watch for me this year. So let's recap the top 10. You went Butters at 1, Merritt, Jamara, Curnow, TDK, Neal, Patrick Cripps, Jai Simpkin, Bailey Smith, and Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. I don't know if you've got 5 more players in you. I don't know if you've done.
I definitely do. Don't worry.
I don't know if you've done enough research.
There's still some very, very big names left on the board, and I'm going to start 11 with Christian Petrarca, another big name recruit, going to Gold Coast, kind of a career restart for Petrarca. I think most people think this guy's past it. I think he's at a different stage of his career. Can he go to Gold Coast under Damien Hardwick and get back to the very best Christian Petrarca we have seen and one of the best players in the competition? I think the pressure's on. I think Gold Coast need him to perform to be one of the best teams in the competition. I'm not quite sure he's capable of it. What do you think?
I'm hearing good things. And
okay.
I don't know if they need him to be the dominant force that he's been. All I think they need and require from him is 17, 18 possessions a game, couple of goals maybe, and impact in big moments. They got everything. They don't need him to go and dominate in the midfield. They got Anderson, they got Rao, they got Miller, they got Bailey Humphrey. They don't really need him to go and dominate in the forward line because hopefully they've got Jamara, they've got Reed, they've got Walter, they've got King. They're absolutely stacked. So, I don't know, to use a basketball term, he might just come off the bench as the sixth man and light up.
Do you think he'll be happy to do that?
Well, if they're winning, I think yes. If he sniffs another premiership, he's got his cooking channel, he's got his Instagram followers, he's got the Sun. Yeah, I just think he's more than happy to have some big quarters or some big moments at crucial times to help get his team over the line. So we'll see. It's a good pick for all those reasons that you said. And, but I just don't think they need him to be the Christian Petrarca that he was 4 years ago. At 12, I got Sam Darcy. I've never seen anything like it. It is the most unique, exciting force in the game that I can remember, and I just think he's going to emerge as the game's biggest name, biggest star of the league for the next 5 years. I don't know how you stop him. He's going to get free kicks everywhere. He's going to be the umpire's best friend. He'll have to kick 70 plus if he stays sound. And at 22, he's set to take the competition by storm.
Great pick. I think the NBA comparison, which we like to do a bit on this podcast, to Sam Darcy is actually Shaq. I just think we've never kind of seen something like this, and particularly when it comes to the umpires, which you touched on a little bit, they're just going to have such a issue umpiring this guy because there's probably a free kick every time he gets the ball kicked to him. Are they going to call it? Who knows? But I just think the athletic freak and the body and everything that comes with Sam Darcy just reminds me of Shaq, which is, I don't know, one of the most dominant players in sports history. Will Sam Darcy get there? Not sure, but he's definitely going to have a massive year. I'm going with another absolute freak, Harley Reid. The honeymoon period is kind of over since he was drafted. We've seen flashes. We've seen great games. Can he do it for the entire season now? Can this guy start to achieve the level we all know he's capable of? And can West Coast start winning some games? It's a big question mark.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to watch this guy this year.
So am I. I like what I've seen for the first time. And I was the first one to question the off-field stuff, and everyone sort of smashed me. Oh, he's young. How can you question him? Well, he's now starting to say, look, I've addressed my professionalism off the field. He looks really fit. He's speaking well. He looks happy. He's caught up with Dustin Martin recently. He's going to use him as a mentor. It's going to be, I'd be confident to say a much improved year from Harley Reid and start to play to that potential in year number 3. At 14, I'm going to go Nick Dacos. Just some grumblings. I don't know, last year. Okay. Just some body language, some frustration. I don't think he was thrilled that he didn't win the Brownlow medal. There's Tassie rumours of big offers coming his way, which is understandable. Collingwood, I think they're on the slide. How does he handle that? He's going to be the one that gets tagged again. So he's a watch. He's a star, and to this point, I can't fault pretty much anything that he's done. He's been flawless with his character and his performance. But he's, if not the best, he's the second or third best player in the game. So with that comes expectation, and I think we'll all be watching.
Let's unpack that a little bit. Let's say Collingwood miss finals this year. They don't really get that close. Do you think the Tassie rumours start to get a little bit louder and all of a sudden the pressure's on Collingwood to actually do something to make sure this guy is a Pies player for life? Yeah.
Unfortunately for Nick, he was poorly advised, like so many players. Now, he may not have been forecasting Tasmania and their arrival, but if he was out of contract, say at the end of 2027, he'd be looking at about a contract worth $4 million per season, I reckon. Yeah. Now, I reckon he'd be getting $1 million at Collingwood, which is great money. Don't get me wrong, but it's $3 million less what he could be getting. He's contracted until 2029. So if I'm Collingwood, I go, well, we don't have to worry about anything. We've got this guy secured. He's Dacos, and we'll worry about it in the early stages of 2028 or the back half of 2028. So they don't really have to do anything. So he can make as much noise as he wants, and there can be as much talk as you like. But, like Zach Merritt wanting out of Essendon, well, too bad. He contracted. So that's the way I'd be playing it if I was Collingwood. Who have you got at 15?
We've had a lot of negative storylines. I want to go positive for a second. I'm picking Dangerfield. I want to see how far this guy can push the limits of age, and I just thought his season was one of the most incredible things I've seen last year. I know he got injured a couple of times, particularly in finals. He was just outstanding, and I want to see if this guy can get to the kind of LeBron level of pushing the limits of your age and still being such an impactful, important player for your team. How old is he? He's getting pretty up there now. I'll have a look.
36-ish, I reckon.
Yeah, so it gets to a point where he gets into kind of a category of his own where no one else has done this, the level Dangerfield is currently playing at, and I want to see if he can do it for one more year.
Yep, 36 in April, has the best current resume, I reckon, of any player with the 8 All-Australians, the Brownlow, the Premiership, best finals player, best and fairest out of his backside. And I certainly didn't think he'd still be playing to this level at this age. In a new position, his prelim final was as good an individual game as you're likely to see. Wasn't able to do it in the grand final. Probably wasn't the supply that he needed. But, yeah, it's a good pick. What a player he's been. At 16, I'm going to go Oscar Allen. A bit off Broadway, but was a captain of a club last year. Tried to sort of – the writing was on the wall. Met with Hawthorn throughout the year. Had to come out and embarrassingly, apologise for that. Ends up at Brisbane. So the motivation to help them win 3 in a row hasn't been sound at all. But when he was sound, star. Like as good a contested mark as there is in the game. And when West Coast won 3 games a couple of years ago, he kicked 50 plus and was in the All-Australian conversation. So the potential is there, and they like what they've seen throughout the pre-season. So can you imagine Brisbane with everything that they've got just go and add a top 5 key forward to them, which he will be if he's sound, and in those conditions with the supply that he's going to get. There's 60 goals up for grabs here, and we're all worrying how they're going to replace Joe Danaher. Well, that didn't worry them, and now they've got Oscar Allen. So I'll be watching that.
Good pick. I'm going to go Clayton Oliver next. I know he's not that important to the Giants. I know they don't need him to be the Clayton Oliver of old. But I just find everything that happens with Clayton Oliver off the field so funny, and I just enjoy watching it really closely. So he's just on my list because anything Clayton Oliver makes me laugh at this point. I have zero confidence he's going to be 80%,
you think the game,
75%.
You think the game's gone past him?
I think so. And I think that frustrates Clayton Oliver, which creates drama. It creates issues for everyone. I just cannot believe the Giants talk themselves into this guy, and I think it's going to be a bit of a disaster this season. And I can't wait to watch it very closely.
Bit of a desperation move, I reckon, and has already had the calf issue throughout the pre-season. So fingers crossed, but I don't know how him and Tom Green play in the same midfield. So definitely I'll watch. Good pick. At 18, you're going to laugh at this one.
I know where you're going.
Tex Walker should have retired after what was a very solid season by Tex, but needed to sit down with an assistant coach or a coach, Matthew Nicks, and watch the final series and go, Tex, you've been great, shake hands, but you can no longer move like you need to move to be able to play the game at this level, particularly in the forward line that we've got. You and I did a podcast this time last year. I said the Crows can't play 3 talls, and it worked okay for them early in the home and away stuff, and the ball's dry and it's buzzing around. It was never going to work in finals. It didn't. Is Matthew Nicks strong enough to have the conversation with a club great and say, look, you're not in our best 22. Unfortunately, you're going to have to back and play Sandford. I don't know if Matthew Nicks has got. I don't think Matthew Nicks has got that in him. I don't think he's ruthless enough to have that conversation.
Right.
So it's a watch on how Adelaide handle this, because it's a problem that they've created for themselves by allowing Taylor to have the future in his own hands when it should have been taken out of his hands by the club. So it's a watch, and it will be interesting for Adelaide, who everyone thinks is going to be a contender and needs to be a contender, on how they handle it.
I often think about how Darcy Fogarty feels through this whole thing, because he's got this guy who's clearly not as good as Fogarty at this point, I don't think. I don't know. What do you think Darcy Fogarty's ceiling is? And do you think he feels Tex Walker's kind of holding him back a little bit?
We don't know about Darcy Fogarty because he's been in Taylor Walker's shadow for too long. It should be his forward line. They play exactly the same positions, similar attributes. The Crows rate him. They've signed him for 7 years. So should have been his forward line 2 years ago, but you've got this big dominant force in your way. And until he's gone, we're not going to know what the upside is for Darcy Fogarty. So, yeah, I think the club have let him down somewhat. It was the ideal time to hand him the keys and let him take over, but looks as though he's going to have to wait another 12 months.
All right. This is my last pick, isn't it? So
last pick.
There's actually, I've got 6 or 7 names here that I could pick, but I'm going to go, I do, I've got a list here, but I'm going to go with one of your favourites to wrap things up. Jason Horne-Francis. He's been injured.
Good pick.
He's had some interrupted pre-seasons. When is this guy going to turn into the absolute monster? One of the best players in the competition. We know he can be. Port Adelaide desperately needs him to have his best season of his career. And they also need him to stay healthy for the whole thing, or else they've got no chance. So I'm picking Jason Horne-Francis at 19. He needs a big year.
It's an excellent pick. Yeah, I should have picked him earlier, actually. I'm disappointed in myself because I backed him in. I'm still really confident, by the way. And if he doesn't get any better, and this is what he is, then he's still a top 50 player in the league, which is pretty good.
Yep.
But how good does he want to be? Does he want to be one of Port Adelaide's best ever? Does he want to do what sort of Zach Butters has done and get into that category? Or is he happy to be top 10 ever and be a bit frustrating and have some really good games or really good quarters and go missing? That is up to him and him only. So we'll see whether a new coach can get the best out of Jason. Has been an interrupted pre-season, but I'm still confident that he's going to be a top 5 player in this league, if not the best player at some point. At 20, I'm going to go with the second hottest free agent on the market, bit off Broadway, but Zach Bailey. Zach Bailey is going to command big offers. Brisbane have already put a 6-year on the table for him, north of 1.3 million, but he's held, and we saw this payoff for Nasai last year. He started off at about $1 million, I reckon, 800 to $1 million, the offers. By the end of the year, he doubled that. Is Zach Bailey going to do the same? Are they going to start at 1.3 and then end up at 2+? I wouldn't be surprised if his form explodes. Free agent clubs get him for nothing, which adds value to you. He's already got the 2 premierships, so he's got the success. Is he going to stay loyal to the Lions or head elsewhere? So, the 20. Butters, Merritt, Jamara, Curnow, De Koning, Neal, Cripps, Simpkin, Bailey, Smith, Messiah is the top 10. Petrarca, Darcy, Reid, Dacos, Dangerfield, Allen, Oliver, Tex Walker, my man, JHF, also my man, and Zach Bailey. I want you to do a graphic with your picks and my picks, and I want you to put it out there on socials of who.
I've got a couple
got
honourable mentions for you as well. I think Jagger Smith is someone that's going to be watched very closely this year. Luke Jackson, with the new rules, I think that could really benefit him and
help him.
We know he's one of your men as well, so we'll see what happens there. Reckon Rochelle, just with his social media stuff, he's trying to put it out there that he's a new man, he's matured. I want to see it. I don't want to see any more Thilthorpe beards and random social media stuff. So I think those are 3 honourable mentions that we didn't pick but could have easily been in that list. Have you got any more?
Yeah, Degoe, I reckon, needs a big year if Collingwood are going to be successful. Darcy Moore, the Collingwood captain, under a fair amount of pressure as well, and just the whole Collingwood setup with with the age of the group, and can they defy that? So there's a couple there, the biggest club. The Richmond youngsters will be interesting, albeit not with a whole lot of pressure, but Lawler's going to be a star, and if he stays sound, I think we're all excited to watch him and see him develop at Richmond with this new young crew coming through. So there's a couple of others, but I think we nailed the 20. I don't think I'd replace any of the 20.
All right. I like that. I'll get you a graphic. We'll put it straight up on socials. You can follow me at Cornes Eddy, you at Kane Cornes. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. We're at 400 plus subscribers now, not very far off 500. We're trying to get there by the end of Feb. So make sure you are subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Dad, thank you for coming on the pod.
Nicely done. Anytime. See you, buddy.